I'm going to review this new Airway Mannequin from Temu. The interesting thing about him is that he is only 464 Australian dollars, which is about 260 euros, 300 US dollars, about 225 pounds, which is much cheaper than some of the other Airway Mannequins on the market. I'm not sponsored by Temu. I'm getting no money from this review video. I'm just interested in sharing what it's like, because I know not everyone has a budget, including me, for something like the Laerdale Airway Management Trainer, which here in Australia is $6,000. So you can buy 13 of these mannequins for one Laerdale Airway Mannequin. So straight out the box, he's got a head, he's got a neck. The neck is mobile and inflection and lateral rotation. He's got a trachea which branches into two main bronchi connected to lungs. He has a stomach connected to an esophagus. He even, for some reason that escapes me, has a liver. I don't know what to do about that. But anyway, he is quite creepy in that he looks kind of dead, in that the eyes are open with dilated pupils, and he kind of stares at you like someone who's been in prolonged cardiac arrest while you're intubating. Anyway, in terms of fidelity, his appearance, he looks like a human. He's got this plastic hair here. He's got these eyelids that you can pry even more open. He's got teeth, which I don't think are probably removable. Haven't tried that. He's got a jaw that opens. And then just my first impression is in terms of manual airway opening maneuvers. If I do a jaw thrust on him, I can do one, but it takes a lot of effort to move that mandible any distance. So in terms of realism, this mandible doesn't feel very real in terms of pushing it upwards as a jaw thrust. It takes huge amounts of effort to move it even a tiny bit. For bag mask ventilation, you can inflate the lungs, even with my dodgy technique here with a mask that I think is the right size for his face. I can get those lungs to inflate a little bit with the BVM. There's probably a bit of a leak around the side here. In terms of supraglottic airways, I'll just pop a bit of lube in this. I can put an eye gel in the mouth. It seems to be at a realistic depth. And we can just about ventilate those lungs through the eye gel. All right, let's intubate this bad boy. So looking in visually, I'm looking at the uvula and following down the midline to identify his epiglottis. Seeing the epiglottis, I'm going to go into the vallecula. Now, things are quite sticky against the rubber of the tongue. Put some lube on that blade. Alright, going to start with video laryngoscopy. I'm looking at the uvula. I'm going to follow that down. I'm going to follow down the midline of the tongue to identify epiglottis. There's the epiglottis. And we'll get him in the vallecula. Let's see if he's got a median glossoepiglottic fold. Can't see a midline structure there, but he's clearly got a vallecula, so we'll put the tip of the blade in the vallecula. See if we can flip up the epiglottis. Yeah, that's quite nice. So that's quite a realistic feel in terms of going in the vallecula, but everything does feel kind of stiff and heavy, not like the usual suppleness of a live human or even a fresh frozen cadaver. But we've got quite bright white vocal cords there. You can see we've got the interarytenoid notch and the arytenoid cartilages here, so we could like simulate a difficult grade 2 view with just the arytenoids there, and simulate putting the bougie just anterior to the interarytenoid notch. So that's quite good for training in terms of realism. Bougie's passing without any problems. Just pop that tube through, inflate the cuff, bougie out, and then we'll see how these lungs inflate. Yeah, well, that's quite nice. They're inflating really well there. So first impressions in terms of fidelity, it's pretty stiff in terms of mandibular movement, but the fidelity of the Mannequin in terms of realistic airway structures, the view you get on laryngoscopy, I think is quite impressive for the price when compared with other airway mannequins. Let's see if we can improve the supraglottic airway placement. We're getting the plastic of the eye gel against the rubber of the Mannequin with a lot of resistance there. So I'm going to lube the eye gel and see if that makes it easier to insert. That's allowing the eye gel to go around the corner a bit better. Try and get that laryngeal mask to sit over the larynx. There. Let's see how that goes. Oh, there we go. Good lung inflation. Certainly better than we had before. So that's good lung inflation. So the trick here is to lubricate the eye gel to get it to go in. Let's see if it goes in better blind now. Yeah, that's fine. So we just need to lubricate everything we're putting in this guy. Let's see how we go with simple airway adjuncts. Putting in an oropharyngeal airway. He tolerates that. Good. And then I'm going to lube. That's interesting. Having trouble passing a nasal. You can feel it buckling in the nasal cavity. Let's try this nostril like you would in real life. You'd go for the other side. That doesn't really want to go. It's hitting the posterior nares, I think, and not going through. Oh, yeah, that went through. Just the angle. Had the angle wrong. Okay, so let's have some more fun. I'm going to have a go DL now. Here I might be more inclined to do a tongue sweep, give myself room. So I've got myself a nice grade 1 view. And the particularly bright white chords, I think, help recognize the chords in this Mannequin. They're not really like that in real life, are they? Hey, I've still got it, look, I've still got it. All right. What else can we do to have a bit of fun on this guy? Let's think about simulating a more challenging laryngoscopy. Now, I don't think this guy, you can make the tongue any fatter. There's nowhere to kind of inflate air or anything. But we can just make our positioning more crap. All right, and if we're dumb enough to intubate a patient in this position, then we can expect some laryngoscopy failures, can't we? All right, so I've got no head support. I'm expecting this to be a more challenging view. With our video, we're going in. There's the uvula. Interesting, I don't know what these kind of flaps are in the oral mucosa laterally, just under the molars there. We've got these kind of tissue flaps of the mucosa. I don't think that's an accidental defect. I think that's just the way he's made. Okay, so going down the midline, uvula always points to epiglottis, and back down the tongue, looking for that epiglottis, and there's the epiglottis, all right? So I'm going to try and go in the vallecula, still feeling that resistance against this stiff rubber here in the vallecula, lifting, and look, there we are. We haven't got a great view. We've got that barely a grade 2 view just with the arytenoids. So that'd be useful to practice putting a bougie just anterior to that interarytenoid notch, but what we should be doing is going through our drills to improve laryngoscopy view. We should be doing our sequence to optimize laryngeal view, SOLV, solve. And in our service locally, that's external laryngeal manipulation. So bimanual laryngoscopy, identifying the thyroid cartilage or the Adam's apple and pushing down on that to try and improve the view. So you see how that's bringing the airway down, and I can now see the chords. But what that also does is enable me to get better purchase in the vallecula to engage the median glossoepiglottic fold, which activates the higher epiglottic ligament, and then when I let go, I maintain my view. I've got better lifting of the epiglottis, so that's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do to get a better view is head elevation. That's part of our sequence to optimize laryngeal view. So I'm lifting the head, and as I do that, you can see the chords come into view. Up, down, up, down, up, down. All right. Another thing we do, the third thing after external laryngeal manipulation, head elevation, is insert the blade all the way to the esophagus, a lift. See, that's the esophagus there, and we're going to pull back, continuing to lift as we pull back, and there we go. We've lifted the epiglottis and the chords have popped into view. We now have a lovely view for intubation. So that's quite impressive in that the fidelity of the anatomy of this mannequin enables us to apply and practice our maneuvers to improve laryngeal view if we get a poor view. So I like that. I want that in a mannequin. I want to practice, and I want my trainees to practice how to improve their laryngeal view by external manipulation, head elevation, insertion all the way, lifting, pulling back. All right, for shits and giggles, as they say in Australia, we're going to intubate the esophagus and see if that inflates this mannequin's stomach. So let's go in too far. Let's find a hole that's the wrong hole, but that could confuse a novice, and we're going to put the tube in that. So there's the esophagus. The tube's gone in the esophagus. Let's just make a seal by inflating the cuff to see what happens then when we inflate. And you can see the stomach is inflating, just like a real patient. All right, good. Doesn't continue to expand like the abdomen would, but that's kind of fun that we've got a stomach that we can inflate with air inadvertently if there's an esophageal intubation. So initial impressions with this TEEMOO mannequin are that this is fit for purpose for training. There's a number of features that make it realistic, including lifelike laryngeal anatomy and an appropriate response to different maneuvers to improve your laryngeal view. He doesn't have the tissue suppleness and mobility of some more expensive mannequins or humans, and so things like a jaw thrust are difficult. The stiff rubber tongue and structures here really catch on the laryngoscope blade and on the supraglottic airway in particular. So when you insert them, just make sure you put some lubricant on, and I think you'll be fine. I haven't quite figured out what to do with the liver yet, and I do find his creepy eyes a bit disturbing. But I reckon he's pretty good, and for what at the moment amounts to $300 US, 225 British pounds, 464 Australian dollars, you can buy 13 of these for the cost of a Laerdale airway management trainer. That's mind-blowing. So that's the Temu Mannequin. Details are in the video description. Once again, I'm accepting no payment or freebies for making this video. I just found this, wanted to test it, and wanted to share what I found. So thanks for joining me for this review.